So for materials, I'm using category 4 yarn and a 5mm hook. So here I am using this Drops Paris 100% cotton yarn. This one's really nice and it's also very affordable. Then if you're making sunflowers like I am, you're going to need 3 colors for your flowers. You're going to need a dark brown for the center, a darker yellow for the first round of leaves, or the first round of petals, and a lighter yellow for the next round of petals. Lastly, you're going to need a background color for your granny square. So I'm using this cream color here. So to begin, we're going to start with our brown yarn. We're going to start with the center of the flower. So we're going to need a circle because we're going to be working in rounds. So there's 2 ways you can do this. You can either make a slip knot, then chain 3, then slip stitch into the first chain, and that'll give you a circle. So if you do this method, you wouldn't work into any of the chains, you'll work into the center of the round, so this hole right here. But this method tends to leave a large open hole in the center, so what I prefer to do is make a magic ring. So once you've got your ring, chain 1 to secure, then make 6 single crochets. Once you've got your 6 single crochets, pull on the tail end to close your circle. Now we're going to begin the next round. So for this round, we're going to be working into the front loops only. So find your first single crochet, which is right here for me, and insert your hook into the front loop only. So this very first one might be a little bit tight. So in that first front loop, we're going to make a slip stitch. And this is the beginning of your first petal. Next, we're going to go into that same stitch and make a single crochet. Then we're going to go into the same stitch again and make a double crochet. Then we're going to make a peacock. So to make a peacock, you're going to chain 2 on top of the double crochet that you just made. Then you're going to slip stitch into the top loop of the double crochet. And you only need to go through 1 loop. Oops. That completes the first half of our petal. So to complete this petal, we're going to repeat the same thing in the next stitch, but in reverse. So we're going to start with a double crochet in the front loop only of the next stitch. So a double crochet, then a single crochet in the same stitch, and then finish it off with a slip stitch in the same stitch. So that's our first petal. We're going to continue this for the rest of this round. So since we have 6 single crochets and each petal takes 2 stitches, you should have 3 petals by the end of this round. So I'll do the next one with you guys again. So insert your hook into the front loop only, make a slip stitch, make a single crochet in the same front loop, then a double crochet, then the picot. So chain 2, and then slip stitch into the top of your double crochet. Then moving on to the next front loop, we're going to make a double crochet, a single crochet, and a slip stitch all into that same front loop. And we're just going to repeat the same thing. Now we've got 3 petals. For this next round, we're going to flip over and look at the back side. So on the back, you should see this kind of ring of the back loops of the single crochets that we didn't go into. We're going to be working into those. So the first back loop can be a little tricky to find, but a trick to help you find it is to find the first half of your first petal, which is this one right here. Then look right above it for where that back loop is. Okay, so I think this is my first back loop. Honestly, it doesn't matter if you accidentally skip a stitch or start in the wrong one. The important thing is to just make sure that you have the right number of stitches at the end of this round. So anyway, into these back loops, we're going to make 2 single crochets into each. So 1, 2. Also make sure to crochet over any tails so you don't need to weave those in at the end. There are 6 back loops, so you should have 12 stitches at the end of this round. And again, it's important to make sure you have the right number of stitches so that you end up with the right number of petals for the next round. So I've got my 12 single crochets, and now we're done with this color yarn. So you can cut your yarn and tie off. So this is what the front looks like. 3 petals, and this is what the back looks like. 12 single crochets, and you don't need to worry about closing the circle just yet. We'll do that with the next color. So next we're going to be using our dark yellow mustard color. So we're going to be working from our last stitch on the brown. So on the very, very left, this kind of looks like a tiny stitch, but that's just the knot. So we're going to be working into the stitch right next to it. We're going to insert our hook into the front loop only. Then use that to pull the dark yellow yarn through. Then we're going to tie a knot to secure it. Then insert your hook back into that front loop. And pull the working yarn through. So now we're working with a new color. Next we're going to find our very first single crochet and make sure it's one of the back loop single crochets and not part of the petal. So my very first single crochet is right here. This round is going to be worked in the front loops only again. So insert your hook into the first front loop. Make sure to work over any tails, and we're going to make a slip stitch. So the slip stitch is the beginning of our next petal. Then from here you're going to chain 2, Then make a double crochet into the same front loop. Then we're going to make a treble crochet into the same front loop. Then we're going to make a peacock, and this is going to be made in the same way as the previous ones. So chain 2, then slip stitch into the top of the treble crochet. Now we're going to make the second half of the petal. So in the next front loop, we're going to make a treble crochet. Again, we're working the same stitches but in reverse. So make a treble crochet, working over the tails. Then make a double crochet into the same front loop. Then we're going to chain 2 and slip stitch into that same front loop. And that's our first petal. So we're going to repeat these steps for all of the single crochets in the front loop only. Then I'll meet you guys back at the end of this round. So I've just finished my last petal for a total of 6 petals for this round, and it's already looking like a cute little flower. But we're going to add another round of petals. So before we do that, we need to make the base for it. So flip your flower over. Then we're going to be working into the back loops only from the brown round. So again, find your first back loop. Mine is right here. Insert your hook and make a single crochet. Then find your next back loop, insert your hook, and we're going to be making 2 single crochets. Find your next back loop, make 1 single crochet, find the next one and make 2 single crochets. So we're going to be continuing this pattern all the way around. So 1 single crochet in one stitch, then 2 single crochets in the next stitch. And at the end of this round, you should have a total of 18 single crochets. Alright, so I've just finished my 18 single crochets. And again, we're going to cut our yarn and tie off. And this is what it looks like so far. So next we're going to be working with our bright yellow yarn. So we're going to attach the new color into the front loop only of our last stitch, just like we did before. So insert your hook into that front loop. Pull the new color through. And tie a knot. Then insert your hook into the front loop again and pull the working yarn through. So now we're working with the new color. So to start the next round of petals, we're going to find the first single crochet from the previous round and slip stitch into the front loop only. Then we're going to chain 3, Then make a treble crochet into the same stitch, making sure to work over those tails. Then we're going to make a double treble crochet into the same stitch again. Then a peacock. So chain 2 and then slip stitch into the top of the double treble. Then we're going to move on to the next front loop. So we're going to do the same thing, make the same stitches in reverse. So start with a double treble crochet into the next front loop. There we go. Then a treble crochet in the same stitch. Then chain 3 and slip stitch into the same stitch. And that's our first petal. Now we're going to continue these same steps. So I've just finished this round for a total of 9 petals, and this is what it's looking like. So next we're going to work in the back loops again to form the base for the next round. Find your first back loop and work 1 single crochet into it. Then in the next back loop, make 1 single crochet. Then in the next back loop, make 2 single crochets. So that's the pattern we're going to repeat for this round. We're going to make 1 single crochet, then in the next stitch, 1 single crochet, then in the next stitch, 2 single crochets. So we're just going to repeat this going all the way around, and at the end of this round, you should have 24 single crochets. So I've just finished my 24 single crochets. So now we can cut our yarn and tie off. So the last thing we need to work on is turning this into a granny square. So I'm going to be using this cream color for my granny square. Just like we've done before, we're going to take our new color and attach it to the front loop only of the last stitch we did. So insert your hook into the front loop, pull the new color through, going all the way around, and tie a knot. Then we're going to insert our hook again into the front loop and pull the working yarn through. So now we're working with this new color. Then for this round, we're going to be making double crochets. So find the first single crochet of the round and slip stitch into the first front loop. Then chain 3. And this counts as a double crochet. Then we're going to make another double crochet in the same stitch. So back into that same front loop, make a double crochet. Then for the next 4 stitches, we're going to make 1 double crochet in each of those. After those 4, we're going to make 2 double crochets into the next stitch. So 1 double crochet, oops, 1 double crochet, then into the same stitch, a second double crochet. Then in the next stitch, we're going to make 2 more double crochets. So the same exact thing, 1 double crochet, and then 2 double crochet into the same stitch. Then we're going to repeat the 4 stitches with 1 double crochet in each. Then in the next stitch, we're going to do 2 double crochets. Then for the next stitch, again, we're going to do 2 double crochets. So if you look at the back, you can see that we're starting to go from this circle into more of a square shape. So we've got 2 sides down. For the next 2 sides, we're going to continue repeating the same pattern. And for our very last stitch, we're going to do 2 double crochets in that stitch. Then we're going to slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 at the beginning of this round. So as you can see, we're starting to get this square shape. So for this next round, we're going to be working with half double crochets. So we're going to chain 2, and this doesn't count as a stitch. Then make 2 half double crochets in the same stitch. So we're going to go into this very first one right here, the same one that we slip stitched into. Then for the next 6 stitches, we're going to make 1 half double crochet in each. So we've got 1, 6. After those 6, we're going to make 2 half double crochets in the next stitch. So 1, 2 in the same stitch. Then in the next stitch, we're going to make another 2 half double crochets. 1, 2 in the same stitch. Then we're going to repeat this pattern starting with the 6 stitches. So in the next 6 stitches, make a half double crochet in each. Then we're going to make 2 half double crochets in each of the next 2 stitches again. Alright, so I'm on the last side and I've just finished my 6 half double crochets. Now I just have 1 stitch left and we're going to make 2 half double crochets in that stitch. 1 and 2. And we're going to slip stitch into the first half double crochet of this round, not including the chain 2. So mine is right here. Just make a slip stitch right there. So now it's starting to look a lot more like a granny square, but we still want to make this background part bigger. So we're going to continue making more rounds. So for this next round, we're going to start by chaining 3. Then we're going to make a double crochet into the very first stitch. And the chain 3 doesn't count as a stitch. So now we've got a chain 3 and a double crochet. We're going to make 2 half double crochets into the same stitch again. Then for the next 8 stitches, we're going to make 1 half double crochet in each of those. So I've got 1 and 8. Then in the next stitch, we're going to make 2 half double crochets plus a double crochet. So that was my first half double crochet, this was my second one. Then I'm going to make a double crochet, all in the same stitch. Then in the next stitch, we're going to make a double crochet plus 2 half double crochets. So between these 2 stitches, we've got 2 half double crochets, then 2 double crochets in the middle, then another 2 half double crochets on the other side. So this will start to help make our corner a little bit more pointy and the sides a little straighter. So now we're going to repeat this pattern over again, starting with the 8 stitches with 1 half double crochet each. Then we just have 1 more stitch left. We're going to make 2 half double crochets plus the 1 double crochet. And if you remember back in the beginning, we had 1 double crochet and the 2 half double crochets. So this corner still matches up with the pattern that we've been doing. So to finish this round, we're going to skip the chain 3 that we made in the beginning and slip stitch into the top of the double crochet, which is right here. Now we're starting to look nice and squarish. So if you want, you can stop right here, but I wanted my granny square background to be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to do 1 more round. So for this final round, we're going to start by chaining 3, and this counts as a double crochet. Then we're going to make 2 more double crochets into that very first stitch. Then we're going to put 1 half double crochet into the next 13 stitches. Then in the next stitch, we're going to make 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3 double crochets. Then we're going to repeat the pattern again, starting with the 13 half double crochets. So now we're at the end of this round. I've just finished my 13 half double crochets. And to finish this off, we're just going to slip stitch into the top of the chain 3. So I'm just going to slip stitch right here. Then we're going to tie off. So now we're done with our first granny square. So to make the same style bag as what I have, you're going to need 14 of these granny squares. So once you've got all of your squares, I'll meet you guys back here to stitch them together. Now we're going to start stitching together the bag. So we're going to start with the top half. And we're going to follow a W pattern right here. So for the first leg of the W, which is right here, we're going to stitch together these two right sides together. So take your granny squares with the flowers facing each other. Then we're going to stitch them together along this edge. So we're going to line up the edge, then insert our hook into the corner stitch. So it looks like mine is about here. So go through the stitch on both granny squares. Then we're going to attach our yarn. And tie 2 knots to secure. Insert your hook back into the same loops and pull a loop through. Now we're just going to slip stitch going all the way across. Now I've reached the end of this edge. Don't tie off just yet. So now we're going to place our granny squares back down where they were, but make sure the side where you left off is on the inside. So these 2 granny squares were right here. And now we're going to do the next part of the W, which is this side right here. So we're going to need to stitch together this edge. So take your flower, put them right sides together, and your hook is already right here. So we're going to stitch going this way. So again, line up your edges, find the corner, then insert your hook, and do a slip stitch. And then we're just going to continue all the way down this edge. Then when you're done with that edge, we're going to put our squares back to where they were. This is the side that I stopped on, and this is the next part of the W. So we're going to stitch together these 2. Now we've ended here, and we're going to do this side. So we finished our W, and we've ended here. There's nowhere left to go from there, so we can cut our yarn and tie off. Then we're going to repeat the same steps for the bottom. So we're going to stitch along here. I've stitched together 2 sides of my bag. I did sunflowers for one side and different pastel colors for the other. And the last thing we need to do is make one more square to go right here. And it'll be folded in half so we have a flat bottom. So you could either make another flower square and it'll just be like that, but I want mine to have a flat bottom, so I'm going to be making a granny square without this 3D flower. So let me show you how to do that. So to make a plain granny square, we're going to be doing all of the same steps that we did to make the 3D flower, but we're going to be skipping the rounds where we create the flower petals. So since we've already done these steps before, I'm just going to go through them pretty quickly. So we're going to start with either the magic ring or the ring made up of 3 chains. I'm going to be doing the magic ring. Chain 1 to secure. Then in your ring, make 6 single crochets. Then tighten your circle if you're using a magic ring. Slip stitch into the first single crochet. And instead of working into the front loops and back loops separately, we're just going to be working into both loops for all of the rounds. Then in every stitch, starting with the one that you slip stitched into, make 2 single crochets. So at the end of this round, you should have 12 single crochets. Then we're going to slip stitch into the first one. Then in that same stitch, we're going to make 1 single crochet. Then in the next one, we're going to make 2 single crochets. And we're going to repeat that going all the way around. So at the end of this round, you should have 18 single crochets. And at the end of this round, we're going to slip stitch into the first single crochet again. Then for round 3, we're going to make a single crochet into the same stitch that we just slip stitched into. And the next stitch, make 1 single crochet. Then in the next stitch, make 2 single crochets. And we're going to repeat that 1-1-2 pattern going all the way around. So we've got 24 single crochets. So to end this round, we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch, just like we did before. So from here, we're just going to repeat the 4 rounds that we did for the granny square background, same as what we did earlier. So the timestamp for that will be in the description. So this is what the finished plain square looks like. So now we're going to add this square to the rest of our bag. So line it up, and we're going to stitch along these 2 sides. Just finished seaming these 2 sides, and I didn't cut off my yarn yet because we need to seam the remaining 2 sides to the other side of the bag. So you're going to grab your other side and line it up, match up the corners. Now you're going to seam from here to here to here. So once you're done seaming, you should have something that looks like this. Then once you fold it over, you can see it's starting to look more like a bag. Next, there's just a little bit more seaming we need to do. We're going to seam up the sides from here to here. And we're going to stop before we do any of the sides of these top 2 squares. And I've just been using slip stitches for all the seams. So you're going to want to turn this inside out again so your seams are on the inside. So once you have that done, I'll meet you guys back here. So here's how our bag is looking like so far. So this is optional, but to hide any tails around the opening, I'm going to add a contrasting trim. Again, this is optional, but I decided I wanted to add a trim in this green color. But you can use any color that you would like. A matching color would look good as well, or you can also just leave the trim off entirely. So to start on the trim, we're going to go to the corner of the opening. So this is where our opening is. And then we want to find the corner between the 2 panels of the bag. So right here. So we're going to insert our hook and attach the yarn to a hole to the right of this seam. So whatever stitch you can find there. Going to pull our yarn through and tie 2 knots to secure it. Now we're going to insert our hook, pull the working yarn through, then make a single crochet in the next stitch. And we're also going to work over any tails that we have. Now we're going to go all the way around the opening of the bag, alternating single and double crochets. So I just did a single crochet, so for the next stitch, we're going to do a double crochet. For the next stitch, a single crochet. Next stitch, double. So we're going to continue up to this top corner of the bag. Then when we get to the corner, to make a hole for our bag strap, we're going to chain 1, skip the next stitch, then in the stitch after that, make the same kind of stitch that we just made for this row. So I just made a double crochet here. I'm going to skip this stitch, then make a double crochet here. Then I'm going to continue alternating single crochets and double crochets. So we're just going to continue alternating, going all the way around and leaving a chain one space at the corners. And if some of your corners have double crochets on the side and some have single crochets on the side, that's okay. It doesn't have to line up. So now I've reached the end of this round, and to finish this off, we are going to slip stitch into the first stitch. And it doesn't matter whether you ended on a single crochet or a double crochet. So slip stitch, then we're going to chain one, and we're actually going to turn our work, so flip it over, and we're going to work going in the opposite direction. So for the second row, we're going to place single crochets on top of double crochets and double crochets on top of single crochets. So the first stitch that I have here is a single crochet, so I'm going to put a double crochet on top of it. Then our next stitch is a double crochet, so we're going to put a single crochet on top. Next is a single, so we're going to put a double on top. And since we're just alternating between two types of stitches, you only really need to figure out what the first stitch is, then you can just continue alternating from there. Now I've reached my first chain one space, so you should be able to just continue alternating through this. My next stitch is a single crochet, so I'm going to put a double crochet on top. Then since we're alternating, the next one will be a single crochet, and I'll just go right into the chain one space for that. And after that, I'll do a double again, and if I look at the stitch below, it's a single crochet, so that matches up. So put a double on top of that. So you should be able to just continue alternating straight through. Then I'll meet you guys back at the end of this round. At the end of this round, we're going to slip stitch into the beginning. Then we can cut our yarn and tie off. The last thing we need to do is make our shoulder strap. So we're going to be making a braided cord that looks like this. Feel free to use whatever you want though. You could use an I-cord or just a chain with single crochets or half double crochets. Pretty much anything will work. I really liked how this cord turned out though, so that's what I'm going to show you guys how to do. So to get started, we're going to make a slip knot. Then we're going to chain 3. Now we're going to skip the first chain, then insert our hook into the second. Yarn over and draw up a loop. Then repeat for the last chain. So insert, pull up a loop. So now you should have 3 loops on your hook. Next we're going to yarn over and pull through 1. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2, then yarn over and pull through 1. So now I should have something that looks like this. Then we're going to look at it on this slant. So imagine this is your row. So if you look at the top, you can kind of see 2 sort of stitches. And if you look right beneath those and kind of pull it apart a little bit, you can see that there are 2 spaces. So those are the spaces that we're going to go into. So we're going to repeat, similar to the first row, insert our hook into that first space. Draw up a loop, then insert into that second space and draw up a loop. Now we have 3 loops on our hook again, and we're just going to repeat what we did last time. So yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 1. And that is the pattern. So you don't need to flip your work at all. We're just going to be working into these spaces right here to get the 3 loops on our hook. And then to go back, we're just going to pull through 1, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 1. So this works up pretty quickly, and it gives you this really neat braided pattern. So keep working these until you've got the length that you want for your shoulder strap, and we're going to need 2 of these of the same length. Once you're ready to tie off, you're going to get the 3 loops on your hook again. So insert into the space, drop a loop, insert into the second space, drop a loop. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through 1, then yarn over and pull through all 3. Then you can chain 1 and pull through. So this is what my cord is looking like. I've got my 2 straps ready, and now I'm going to attach them to the bag. Take one of your straps and you're going to insert the ends both through the same face of the bag. So you're going to push it through so the ends are on the inside. Then on the inside of the bag, you're going to take your end, wrap it around your fingers twice, then push the end through. So this will make a big knot. And it should be big enough that it won't go through your chain 1 space. So do that on both sides. Then repeat for the other face of the bag. Then pull your straps through. And we're done! Thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed making this project as much as I did. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!